Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and a special guest. The time was 51 BC. Ptolemy 12, king of Egypt, had been either killed in battle or committed suicide, probably the latter. He had designated his daughter Cleopatra, 18 years old, and his son Ptolemy 13, 12 years old, to rule Egypt. I want to discuss some of the characteristics of Cleopatra, to give you a time frame of how some things happened during her 21-year reign, and then some personal comments at the end. First of all, she was a flamboyant individual. She was outrageously wealthy. She was born into wealth, and when she died, she was still very wealthy. She was extremely well educated, very well educated for that time particularly. She spoke fluently 8 languages, which served her very well. And she knew she could quote long passages from some of the philosophers or the writers of that time. Very bright lady. She wasn't beautiful, but she was very attractive, had a great sense of negotiating skills, probably taught from her dad. She was really born to lead because of the things he had done. She was also an excellent experimenter. Tried different things on her own. It was kind of a hobby that she had. So those are some of her characteristics. From a timeline standpoint, in BC 51, she took over as Queen of Egypt. She had difficulty getting back to the palace because she was with her dad when he was killed. But she got back, got into the palace. And after a period of time, and we're talking days, she realized that she had a guest. So she went down to introduce herself, and lo and behold, who was there but Julius Caesar, the most powerful man on earth at that particular time. She introduced herself, and they hit it off very nicely. In fact, they hit it off so well that he stayed around for a few extra months. When he finally went back home, so soon after he arrived, he got a message from her. In that message, she said, "Congratulations, you are the father of a new baby boy who one day will be emperor of the Roman Empire." Well, Caesar at the time was 52 years old and married and thrilled to death. He immediately sent her a message back, "Come see me and bring our son," which he did. He put her up in a palace for several months, and then she went back home. And I don't know how many trips she made in the interim, but in BC 44 she went. Barely got ensconced in her palace and learned that Caesar had been assassinated. So with that, she scurried out of the country and went back home. Next 3 years were pretty uneventful. But in BC 41, a guy by the name of Mark Antony was making a lot of noise in the Middle East and conquering territories and so on. And one day she received a message from Mark Antony that said, "Hey, come on up and see me. Let's get acquainted. I'd like to meet you." So she decked out a barge like we can't even believe. Gold, silver, emeralds, diamonds, you name it, over this whole barge. And in addition to that, she was dressed fit to kill. They went up, met in Tarsus. Antony was immediately taken by her, and they began a 10-year relationship. Some people say that this was her one love in her whole life. So that took us to BC 31, and this was the fateful year. Octavian, who had been appointed by Caesar, or diagnosed as his successor, Octavian was rampaging through the Middle East. Antony went up to meet him and was losing, so he sent a message to Cleopatra, "Send me a navy." And so she decked out 500 ships, probably like barges. 250 men on every one of these ships. And they went up to meet Octavian, who only had 400 of these barges. Well, lo and behold, Octavian won. Mark Antony went on the run, came down, went into the palace. They talked, and they both realized that, hey, the jig is up. So Antony said, "I'm going to commit suicide." And he went and did that. She decided to do the same thing, but she waited a little longer than she had planned to. But finally, troops, I guess, were almost knocking on her door, and she took some poison. Some say she was bitten by a snake. Probably not true. She was an experimenter, and she probably did the poison that she had mixed. Octavian took over the area, robbed Alexandria of all of the great wealth. They had more wealth than anybody in the world. Took it to Rome. Put that into perspective. The interest rates in Rome at the time was 12%. When they got all of the loot out of Alexandria, it went to 4%. It was huge. And that ended her reign. Now, some of the things I have feelings about. She loved her people, got along great. She would go away for months and come back, and everything was going fine. She dispatched 2 brothers, killed them because they had a thirst for her power. But she kept the country from being part of Rome, kept it independent. I think that is incredible. Cleopatra, in my opinion, one of the greatest leaders ever, and probably the greatest female leader in the history of the world.